What happens on the day after big events? You know, the day when everyone has to return to Earth and get on with things. Most of the time, life just goes on as usual. But sometimes it's what happens the day after that changes the world. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Tuesday, July 5th, 2022. You know the names of people like Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, John Hancock, and even John Witherspoon. All were members of the Continental Congress that adopted the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776. But have you ever heard of John Dunlap? He wasn't a delegate and couldn't vote to adopt the Declaration, but his name appears on the earliest published copies of it nevertheless. It's called the Dunlap Broadside. When the Second Continental Congress formally adopted the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, it also ordered copies to be printed and distributed to state houses, troops in the field, for display in public places and to be read aloud around the colonies. The job of printing these documents fell to Irish immigrant John Dunlap, a printer in Philadelphia. He worked through the night of July 4th and into the morning of July 5th to set the type and print perhaps as many as 200 copies of the Declaration. It was a broadside, that is, a poster-sized document designed to be posted in public places. Congress knew that simply voting to adopt a Declaration of Independence would have been little more than a symbolic act if it didn't communicate what it had done. Nobody would know. To make their action have legs, they needed to communicate it as effectively and as broadly as possible. Enter John Dunlap. It fell to him to put the soaring prose of Thomas Jefferson into a form people could have ready access to. A mundane task, really, but every bit as important as the work of legislators or soldiers. This wasn't the copy you and I are accustomed to seeing. When we think of the Declaration of Independence, we think of that fair copy written in longhand and signed by members of the Continental Congress, but not until August 2nd. The copies Dunlap produced were typeset to make it easier to distribute in substantial numbers. He could have printed it anonymously, I suppose, but he didn't. He put his name on it, all but ensuring that his life would be on the line. Sometimes what happens the day after is every bit as important as the big events themselves. Not to make too abrupt a transition here, but this was as true of the early church as it was in the American Revolution. It was all well and good that Jesus died for the sins of the world and rose again that we might have new life. But what difference would it have made if no one had ever heard the news? The Gospels and the book of Acts all record encounters of the risen Christ with his disciples, both the 11 apostles, but also others as well, including Paul, in the form of a vision on the road to Damascus. But perhaps the encounter that has had the greatest impact is the one at the very end of the Gospel of Matthew, when Jesus met his disciples on a mountain in Galilee. Now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. And Jesus came and said to them, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always, to the end of the age." The command is as simple as it is essential. Go. Not just go on your merry way, but go, announce, make new disciples, baptize them, teach them. What is this if not the all-important day-after task of announcing earth-shaking news? The Continental Congress might have found another printer to publish their declaration, but John Dunlap took up the call and stayed up through the night so that the next day the world would start to learn what had happened on July 4th. Turns out that the day after often matters just as much as what happens on the most important days in history. And now may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.